Okay, I do believe that we are live right now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our 10th webinar and the 5th of AI series. Today's topic is your organization ready for AI? We'll cover a lot of different aspects of what you should answer yourself, whether your organization is ready. And today, okay, I will introduce myself. My name is Mateusz Konieczny. I'm tech evangelist at Brainhub and STX NEXT. And today I will host this webinar. And we have two guests, Geoffrey Teale from Upvest and Michał Skibicki from STX NEXT. Hello, guys. Geoffrey, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Jeff. I'm a principal engineer at Upvest, as you mentioned. Fairly long career in computer science and programming. I've been programming for over 40 years. First engaged with AI at university way back in the mid-90s, and I've been following along at home, building my own models originally, and these days using other people's for many years since. And also, I mean, fairly recently, a main topic of focus for me over the last 5 years or so has been developer experience. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Geoffrey. And Michał?
Yeah, hi everyone, and Mateusz, thanks for having me here. I believe it's my second time here on this webinar. I'm in the role of AI manager in STX NEXT, which means I work closely with our AI team that is running AI projects for our clients. I got also, or my background is in project and product management, and that's the perspective I really like to include in our projects, because at the end, it's about building something valuable, not only about tech, and I believe we can and we will discuss it today as well.
Okay, thank you, Michał. Thank you guys for having you today. And today's theme is your organization ready for AI? There will be some aspects that we would like to cover. For sure, we would like to cover understanding the strategic role of AI in today's world. Then evaluating and building competences, going from hype to real value, and supporting the people that are behind the change, the AI transformation. Our purpose today is just jump into some kind of conclusions that will form in a checklist what organizations should consider trying to answer whether they should adopt AI or not. And I encourage viewers to ask questions in the chat. We would like to answer them during the webinar or at the end during the Q&A session. And yeah, guys, I think that we'll jump to the first question. Let's call it warm-up questions that I really like. Where do you think organizations most often get AI wrong? Geoffrey, could you start?
Sure. Yeah, so I think probably right now, because of the environment that we're in, with the level of interest and the hype and the amount of money that's invested into the AI space right now, I think really the biggest mistake that organizations are making is actually taking the priority and the impulse to do these things purely from the vendors of those solutions. So, I mean, there's a lot of very big inflated claims out there, and if you translate those directly into business strategy, and believe that you're going to get these amazing results with very little effort, I think that's somewhat naive. And yeah, I think that's probably the number one mistake right now.
And Michał?
Yeah, I've got two in my mind actually. The first one, and this is very common, if I can say that, is something I see is underestimating the data problem. Right? People treat AI like a magic wand. Like, you know, they think they can just sprinkle some AI dust, right, on a pile of messy, disorganized data and get brilliant results at the end. But it doesn't work that way. This famous sentence, garbage in, garbage out, stays still. Is still present and with us. And the second biggest mistake is not having clear success metrics. Without them, AI projects become like science experiments that never end. as for whether AI is a feature or a tool, I think that's a great way to frame it, right? It's a tool when you use it internally to make your team work smarter, and it becomes a feature when your product and your customer interacts with it and gets some real benefits. And confusing the two things is a classic misstep, because they require completely different approaches in development, in investment, and how you measure success at the end. So this misunderstanding is also something common, and something we see often.
Yeah, and differentiation between feature and tool is a great way to just determine how to approach AI. And my second question is when organizations should look at existing AI solutions and integrating them into their products, and when they should build their capabilities with their AI and their AI team. What do you think?
So, Jeff, go on.
Okay, absolutely. So, I mean, actually, I think what Michał just said is very, very true. But I also think there's actually 5 cases, right? So you've got off-the-shelf AI that you use internally, self-developed AI solutions internally. Okay, so this is the tool side. You've got the same 2 things as features of your product, but actually the 5th case as well is the one that's least controllable, and maybe we'll come back to that later. But that's also about how your customers might use AI to interact with you as well, which is another thing you have to think about in this space. Sorry, can you repeat the question to me? I've distracted myself.
Yes, integrating AI solutions, existing AI solutions, and creating your AI team internally. Basically, that's the question.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for a lot of companies, the reality is, and we touched on that already, that they're not great at doing these data tooling already. Maybe underinvested in that, or simply can't find the people to do that. And if you don't start from that position, a good strong position in terms of your own data, then you're not going to get good outcomes anyway. So there are lots of cases where there are existing off-the-shelf AI tools which you can just bring in and use in discrete cases very, very well. I've seen them in things like recruiting, analyzing CVs, things like that. Not that they should be the total solution, but they can really help with efficiency in those places. But if you're talking about internal processes, it gets a lot harder. And if you're not starting from this very strong position, then I think you really need to sort of step back, and either of those solutions is going to be very hard to get to a good solution with. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's probably no single right answer to this question, right? But you can think about it in this way: like you buy or integrate off-the-shelf solution where or when you are solving a common or well understood problem, something that is, I don't know, happens often, is well defined, something simple maybe, and where you are aware that there are a lot of tools, or that there are tools available and you can use, test, and verify, and maybe the process isn't that critical in your organization. On the other hand side, you build your own capabilities, and it can be 2 ways, right? You can have your own AI team to build it for yourself. You can have also partner who will build this solution, this product for you, but still it's a custom solution just for you, right? And you're going this direction when the solution is core to your secret sauce, right? Whether this product, whether it's this process, as Jeff said, you've got one particular very critical process in your company that you need to automate, enhance or use AI there. Then probably you can think about building something that is tailored to your needs without, later going in those loops of, okay, let's adjust the out-of-the-box tool to our needs because we've got some nuances of the process that we discovered through the years, right?
Yeah, you mentioned about a few factors. You mentioned about customer custom solution. Mentioned about critical process in organization. Guys, do you see just one question that could determine when it's worth jumping into your own AI solution and your own AI team? Do you see just one factor question that could help any organization determine whether it's a good idea? I know it's a hard one, so anyone could start.
I mean, I think we're going to talk at the same time again. I think, I mean, really, whenever you assess if something is worth doing, right, then you're talking about a size of opportunity. And so whether it's internally facing or externally facing, it's having this very clear idea of the value that you can deliver and quantifying that. So building an AI team internally is not an easy exercise, and it's expensive. Right? So either you've got to drive a lot of engagement from customers, ultimately a lot of revenue to justify that, or you're going to make a major difference to your organization, in terms of, I like to talk about effectiveness rather than efficiency, right? You're going to deliver more value to your clients and ultimately measure that in terms of revenue that you're receiving on the basis of it. And if you can't answer those questions, if you can't say, this is what we're going to achieve by doing this, then you probably shouldn't even start. That's the view that I take.
Yeah, and probably the thing you should do is to do a cross check or align it with your strategy. And there can be different and multiple things. You can look at ROI of the initiative, whether at the end you will earn money, the revenue and stuff. Maybe you're believing in transformation, like in about 3 or 5 years, some part of the market will be, and will unlock new opportunities for us. Then this investment is worth. Or maybe it's because of the culture changes or culture itself. So I would say it's more about finding this North Star for you and checking whether you can align those initiatives from AI to this North Star, and whether at the end they are, aligned, and you can say that, yeah, that's our direction, we know what to do, and we're sure about that, without
Yeah, I really like what Jeff mentioned. Is like, when you can't answer those questions, you shouldn't start even with AI, with building AI by yourself, because it's quite a hard way to do. And I would change a little bit the order of what I wanted to talk with you, because I wanted to start with building competencies in organization and then about delivering value, but you've already mentioned about delivering value. So I would just start with a question: when we can determine what is the factor that we are not that we are not experimenting with AI in our organization, but we should actually deliver it with AI. Because in many companies, it's like there are many AI enthusiasts, there are many ideas of what we can do with AI, there are many existing solutions, that there are many ways of what you can create. But the question is, one it is the good idea, that, or just this unlocking moment, I will call it, that we can just start with delivering with it.
Maybe I can start with this time. It's of course, it's hard to mention one exact point in time, but one thing that comes to my mind is to be, very obsessive or even fanatical, with fanatical focus on a well-defined business problem, like from day one, before a single line of code is written. Right? You must have absolute clarity on what problem you're solving, for whom, and how you will measure success. So many teams fall in love with that, cool algorithm, those integrations, everything that can be easily built, and that's basically a receipt for a solution looking for a problem. And those projects almost always end up on the shelf, or somewhere covered with the dust.
I mean, I just want to add to that slightly, that the experimentation factor is actually really important as well, right? So we take quite a, I wouldn't say negative, but a very serious tone here. But actually, there's no better time for people to start learning those skills and to engage with AI. There's a massive discount factor on what's being given to us right now, which may not always be there. So it's much cheaper to do that experimentation now. There's this explosion of new tools, and you can get all sorts of ideas by going down that route, right? So reaching this point where you know how to convert AI into a solution to a real business problem is much easier if you've made yourself familiar with that tooling, right? So I think we have to be clear about what the value of that experimentation is. And actually, from a developer experience point of view, I see developers in my company and everywhere right now experimenting with tools, excited to try new ones. If I went back 20 years, developers, or even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, developers would spend just as much time optimizing their IDEs or their text editors and their workflow in those ways. So these are just new ways of doing that. So there's a degree from a pure hard-nosed business perspective, there's a degree of wastefulness there, but this is also how we get to solutions that help us. So I wouldn't undermine that, but I think it is important to spend a little bit of time doing that.
And that's definitely, and at the end, you have to have those skills and people that are capable of solving things. That definitely experimentation is very important area. I just looked a little bit ahead in the phase, like when you are thinking about the end product, right? You have to be sure, or as much sure as it is possible, that you are solving a business problem, defined business problem. And at the end, you can say like, okay, yeah, we've handled it. We've got, I don't know, those results, and we can prove that we did something great because this and that. The worst scenario is where you've got awesome application, awesome product, but at the end, no one can say whether it is doing good job or not. Like, it's definitely amazingly running, but yeah, the outcome is very vague.
This sort of ties back as well to some of these points as well. When we talk about looking for efficiency improvements, for example, if you're not measuring efficiency right now, if you don't know
exactly
how efficient your developers are, how are you going to measure that outcome? And what might you miss in that process? So again, this is talking about taking your targets from things that vendors say as well. Just because Google or Microsoft says they're achieving some efficiency gain, if you start out with that target, you're going to be disappointed, I think. And that's a reality. So addressing those issues first is really important.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I see this case a lot in, for example, software development. It's like we already have many toolset AI assistants and so on that help us code. And then we try to actually calculate developers' performance. And it's like how it changed. And it's like, oh my God, we actually don't measure it. We didn't measure it at all. And right now we completely do not know how to know that Cursor, Copilot, and so on are better or are improving our development process. And it's like, okay, we feel in a subjective way like it's improving. Our developers are more satisfied and so on. Clients also see this increase in business value delivery. But it's like, if we cannot measure it, it's like it's really hard to determine. And we are talking a lot about competences. I really like this area of talking about experimenting. It's, of course, we have to experiment to know these tools. But when let's create a scenario. There's a guy that says that we can improve our process by just building a solution based, for example, on LLM and so on, to improve a process in an organization. How do we know that he has this AI capabilities and can introduce such a tool, or is it like just experimenting? It's not like enthusiastic approach. How can we determine that such people have competences to introduce such tools? It's a hard one, I see. Yeah, could you start?
Yeah, I wanted to ask whom would you like to start with this one? And yeah, as you said, it's a hard one because we've got also out here many perspectives and different different options, right? Sometimes we've got a company that is just stepping into AI, that is completely fresh in AI, without any skills in any of the leaders or even technical people among the company, and it is harder for them to assess whether something someone else proposes, will be successful or not. And probably it's good to find someone else who can double check it. Of course, we've got this perspective or this thing about the risk, right? At the end, how critical is the process? What's the risk behind the experiment? If it is like, we can risk, I don't know, a few months or this amount of money and we feel safe with this experiment, then I would say, yeah, check, verify it, whether it works this way. If the risk is too high, then probably you should consider or reconsider the initiative once again, maybe do a second loop of planning, checking it before you will go there, because that's also another thing. After one or two failures, you may say like, oh no, AI is not for me. I will be now reluctant to it. I've heard that people are doing great stuff, but for us, for our company, like, we failed with 2 projects, and after that, it will be also harder for a company, for people, for the board, right, for the management board to decide whether to go or to not, because you've got bad record.
I really like that point, actually. The kind of risk assessed, excuse my cat if you can hear him, that kind of risk assessed experiment is a very good way of judging something. I think in terms of knowing whether people have the skills or not, I think this is a classic, sort of coming from a startup world, it's a classic founder problem. If you're a non-technical founder and you want to hire a CTO or a first engineer, how do you know they're a good engineer? How do you know a lawyer's good when you hire them? Ultimately, there's some trust factors. You can, of course, ask for help, right? You can ask for people who have clear, demonstrable experience. You can have consultants in the space. You can have companies that you reach out to support you. You can have investors who can advise you about things that they know. Although actually just today I was reading an article about the bad advice from investors. I mean, I think ultimately there is no way to know, and I said this risk assessed approach is a great way to go. If you're an AI excuse me, a real AI expert, you probably can spot another one, but otherwise there are far more people claiming that expertise than there really are.
Yeah, and the approach you can take here is to think about how you can split this risk. For example, if the initiative you're going to or you are thinking about is like too risky for you, then the question is, what step is good enough for me? Like, what small first step I can do with bare minimum risk that will verify something without even going, all in. So splitting the risk is also something you can do. You can try here.
And I really like that you talk about trust. It's like we need to just determine even on experiments or just some kind of work that has no such big impact to determine whether those skills, AI skills, are there. And from your experience, what do you see is the most important right now? It's like hiring AI specialists from outside, or just trying to upskill existing teams? What approach is do you see the most, and what is better in current situation right now, in your opinion?
Maybe I'll start there. So I think defining what you mean by an AI expert is very important as well, right? So there are many different levels of this, and it comes back to those earlier questions you're asking, what you should build yourself, because there are multiple levels of that. If you're building actual models yourself, then you need very skilled people. If you want to build a business on making better AI models, you need people with real stochastic skills and mathematicians. And if you're venturing down that road, you really ought to know what you're looking for already. The next step up is people who have deep skills in utilizing existing models and building solutions with them. And I think those people are already in very high demand and hard to find. So a question you should ask yourself in this area is it realistic that I go out and find these people? All right. So then the next question then is, if you can't find those people, or you think that's too hard, maybe reducing that set to some key people in your organization, and then thinking about training. And I think actually training internally is important for all these use cases, right? So one of the gaps that we have right now is that even just knowing how to utilize these tools, what's reasonable to expect from them, what cases can be solved by things like LLMs, because obviously there's a gap as well between the understanding of what's possible with AI as a general term, with machine learning, deep learning as a general term, as opposed to what's possible with generative AIs and LLMs. And actually the gap in outcomes is not this miraculous huge gap, right? We're able to do wonderful things with machine learning without having these large language models. What's come from those large language models is this world where we are able to converse with AI in human language and get results, seemingly meaningful results from it in that sense. So these emergent capabilities are how things have changed, and the price factor I mentioned earlier as well. But understanding how to use those tools, because they're dealing with this fairly fuzzy domain of human language, is actually a skill in itself. And I think we really need to promote the understanding of these topics within our organizations before we have, bigger conversations and expectations. So of the two, I actually think making a clear decision about what you're doing first, and then pretty much always some training aspect is going to be required.
Yeah, and I like what Jeff said about thinking what you're building, because there may be cases where you definitely need to hire someone. Like you've got for your use case, the only way is to train from scratch or even fine-tune embedding model because of the nature of your data, or you have to build, I don't know, a system that is based on reinforcement learning. Then you wouldn't go the way of upskilling your current team, because this requires very sophisticated skill set. And of course you can, but you will wait quite long to get people gain those skills, right? So probably the first and quicker step will be to find someone who is skilled, trained, and experienced in this area, right? But also you cannot leave the second one with upskilling the current people. So it's like a process of having two in mind continuously, because at the end you want your people to get upskilled. You've got the specialists from this area, but you want to transfer this knowledge to other people among the company, to avoid the situation of bus factor, when you've got everything on one person at the end.
And talking about knowledge transfer, there is next question. From your perspective in your organizations, how those competencies are distributed? Is it like there are AI teams with all AI competencies, or it's like decentralized? There are AI experts in different teams, but they are still multidimensional. Jeff, could you start?
Okay. So, I mean, I think if I look at my own organization, there are some groups that are naturally affine to these topics. So we have a lot of software engineers. They are naturally interested in these topics. They're playing with these tools, so they're building up their competency in that domain. Probably we do have, in terms of that kind of experimental usage, we do have a very broad spread across the company. I think every part of the company is taking an interest and looking to see if there are opportunities there. What will emerge, I think, slowly is that, again, we already have a data function within the company. I think will emerge is some more focus on that area and building out that side of the business. And I think if it does end up with a defined AI competency within the company, or probably be built around that organization. I think that's, again, it will depend on how organizations are using AI, because I think for a lot of cases, if you're, again, just using in a sort of surface level, interacting with Gemini or whatever it is, that's fine. I think everyone can get there. As I mentioned, the training case, I think that's not that hard. If you're actually building something more complicated around AI, then you will end up with this function there, and this pool of expertise, because you'll need something beyond just day-to-day engineering. Like building tools for an agentic AI is, I think, a core engineering task, but actually understanding the deeper notion of what's possible, how you translate your own data into a meaningful result, that requires more expertise and will necessarily be specialized.
And something you've mentioned is also, that's why probably people and companies differentiate those two things. On one hand side, you've got the classical machine learning and this approach of, building systems that rely on training models that are, prepared to your or built on your data. On the other hand side, you've got this AI in terms of generative AI and the tools, applications that rely on the large language models mostly, but also those huge models that are built and available as a service, right? Because it occurs that for those aspects, maybe you can use some tool. Maybe you can also learn this quite fast to some level, right? But it will be enough for you to unlock something or to speed up the process, to use something. And you don't have to have like a very skilled data scientist that will build this or test this tool for you and say how to use it. So there are those two things, and going back to framing this problem. But something we very often observe is when you're thinking like, really about building your core, your own competences. You start with centralized center, like something like center of excellence or central team that holds the AI and is available for the company. But the knowledge is there, and it slowly moves towards the distributed, as more people are aware about possibilities, options with AI, more projects that were even both success and failure, but still people are learning as they go.
Yeah, I really like this example with like spreading this knowledge. I have one question also, considering those AI distribution knowledge in teams. Is it more like when we have a team that creates an AI solution, then we actually deal with AI team? But when it's like adopting existing AI solutions, it's like, okay, we have an AI engineer in such a team, for example, software development team. And it's like just a composition like in regular software development teams, like there are QAs, DevOps, and so on. So it's like an injecting this competency, but we are not actually creating an AI solution. Am I right in your opinion, or not?
In terms of having different skill set within a team,
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
what you're asking? Yes, you can have, and then again, we are going back to frame this problem. You can have people that are highly specialized in, for example, turning models into production ready, or basically into production, and they will focus only on MLOps side, AI ops side, right? Or people that are more closer to the data scientist, right? Who will dig through your data, find the patterns, build many prototypes, experiments, and find the solution that will work in your areas, and people who will basically organize it. So there are options of specialization within the question whether you or when you need it, right, for your organization. Starting from scratch with all roles, it's probably not the best option, because you're ending with many specialists, with very narrow specialization, right?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think having AI specialists in every team is quite unlikely. Again, depending how we define specialist, but kind of like an analogous to what we do with the transformation to cloud, right? So there's some companies work with site reliability engineers who have this kind of vertical role where they step up into other teams and help them, but also work together in a group to share knowledge and to build tooling together. That could be a plausible model. I don't know yet if we start to see companies that have necessarily like an AI platform team, but that could happen. I think everything is moving so quickly right now that there aren't such well-defined standards for everything. I mean, we're starting to see that with MCP and things, that people are engaging in technology as a standardized thing, but this space is so competitive right now that it's not emerged like that. And again, the fact that we're even having this conversation about how to use AI, I think companies are too or often too unfocused right now to really make these kind of strategic decisions about, you know, okay, we're going to follow this particular structural model in our company for dealing with this.
Yeah, and someone probably you should look for. It's probably not a role, but someone with the skills of being like AI translator, someone who is somewhere between the business and technical and tech, right? Someone who can bridge this gap between those two worlds, right? Between only speaking about algorithms and how to solve the problem from technical perspective, and someone who only understands the business without the knowledge of, okay, but what's exactly and realistically possible here? What can we do? And is the current level of tech or is the tech on the current level that will help us, or is it, for example, too expensive right now, or we don't have the data? What can we do here? So someone who can translate from one side to another and the other way around will be probably needed in many companies.
Oh, it's like we can call this role like AI advocate, something like that. And we just
AI.
and bridge business and technology.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's the goal, yes. And speaking of just translating how we can use AI, what for, and so on. How do you lead people through this AI transformation? Already Michał mentioned that we can also have a central team of experts and just share the knowledge in organizations or just spread it to the teams. But how do you lead or see how can you lead this knowledge transfer in organization just to support let's call it AI readiness, but in terms of people who will just become AI users? Geoffrey, could you start?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one. I mean, I think there are obvious answers in terms of, yes, we set up training programs or we bring in external trainers to teach us these things. But actually, I mean, again, you still have to make this decision, first of all, that this is something that you want to do. And it isn't necessarily all that clear all the time. And I think there's a wealth of opportunities. I don't think we'll go back from the situation we have now. I don't think we'll go backwards to a place where AI isn't part of the conversation, or at least these modern LLMs aren't part of the conversation. But you also have to have this realistic view of the future before you start restructuring your entire company around this and changing everything to do it. You have to sort of understand what's going on in the bigger picture. I mentioned the discount factor right now. So we have some very big vendors who are investing very large amounts of money and now getting governments to invest money there as well. And of course, they have an end game in mind. And I think there are two obvious end games. One is actually that they achieve this goal of AGI. I'm a little skeptical about that myself, but that's certainly one of the things that they are certainly promoting and pushing for and talking about. The other way is that they follow like an Amazon or an Uber model where you became a very dominant player in that space, and then you can convert this into a profitable business by basically driving everyone else out of the space. both of those scenarios don't necessarily work well for companies as consumers of that technology, right? So if you build your world around either of these two scenarios, either you might end up in a space where you're able to automate everything and it's lovely, but you know, again, like the price of that and the economic impact of that might be unreasonable. The other one is a world where if you become over reliant on a single vendor or solution, that you might end up with no control over the price of what you're using and doing it. So it would sort of urge a little bit of caution around that stuff. But then if you do then say, okay, this is what we want to do, you still have to have this clear strategy, right? So I think initially training in support of that experimentation, encouraging a little bit of experimentation is great. Making this bigger strategic decision again, and sort of stress, you really have to know what it is that you're shooting for, how you're going to build a product or how you're going to improve your company, how sustainable that is with those possible futures going on, and then build a strategy around that. And I don't have easy answers for that. If I did, I'd be starting my own startup and doing them right now. So
but after you know this, right? And I will continue from this place. Let's say you've got the answers, right? And now you've got this very tough leadership challenge that require, you know, huge empathy, I believe, because first you have to be honest with your people. Don't pretend that, you know, roles aren't going to change. Just, you know, acknowledge the shift, and of course paint this clear picture, something Jeff said, picture of the future, and provide pathways for people to grow into new roles. Of course, you have to think about the psychological safety. People need to be able to voice their fears and ask tough questions. And your role as a leader here is to listen and help them. But finally, or at the end, you have to help people reframing their sense of value. Like, you know, if someone's entire job was to manually compile a report that an AI is now doing in a second, it's natural for this person to feel devaluated, right? And your job as a leader is to help them see that, you know, okay, you're not doing the job, you're not a doer anymore, but at the end you will analyze the output. Your job is now moved towards more, you know, thinker or someone who can critically assess it, because you've got this experience. And the question is how we can scale it and move or push more towards, you know, other solutions. So that's another thing, quite important, I think.
It's a very interesting, so to jump in, but it's a very interesting point as well. When we start talking about efficiency and effectiveness of humans and AIs working together, I think it's quite a common point generally that sometimes the focus we have in terms of product delivery is often on automating the thinking part, or the part that is, you know, traditionally where the creativity or the engagement is. So we talk about software development. We say, oh, well, let's have the AI write the code, and we'll review the code. Or we talk about self-driving cars. You say, let's let the car drive, and if something goes wrong, we'll step in at the last moment. And actually, sort of any analysis of those things will tell you that this is probably exactly the wrong way around. Human beings are not good at doing these kind of last-minute analysis tasks. If a computer goes away and writes 10,000 lines of code for us, it will do it incredibly quickly. But the task of reviewing that code is a very difficult one for a human to do. And we see that already in programming with humans reviewing other humans' code. It's very hard to do effective reviews of large changes. And again, when we start talking about measuring efficiency, I think we'll find that isn't necessarily as efficient as people think it is. So yeah, I mean, there's some interesting questions there about how that collaboration works and whether we're really doing the right things.
Yeah, it's a tough job nowadays for leadership, just to show people that it's all about just shift how we are just working with AI. It's not like people sometimes just jump into two extremes. It's like, I will do something without using AI, or I will let AI do entire job. basically, and it's like it's rather somewhere in between. It's like it's a hybrid approach, and we are slowly shifting in towards like, let's use AI into our work, but it's like that we are just completely change everything. It's like that we are not doing the job we did so far. It's like we are just collaborating with it. And okay, guys, we will just slowly jump into the final part of this webinar. I will just treat the what we did before is like a warm-up for just making a checklist and trying to find questions or aspects that are really important for organizations to determine their AI readiness. So guys, if anybody could start, what would be just your readiness checklist? What questions or aspects do you see as the most important ones? Let's start with Michał.
First question probably goes, or it's a question about what problem are you trying to solve here, and why actually this one, and when will you know that you've solved this problem, like in terms of any kind of success metrics at the end. So this will be my first one.
Okay, I think having defined that problem, you also will need to calculate what your tolerance for error is. Because a defining characteristic of AI, especially in the modern sense, is that we cannot ever be 100% sure that it's going to give the right answer every time.
So it's like the risk that we can take, right? Something connected.
Sort of, but it's actually, is this a scenario that you're defining that can tolerate a certain amount of failure?
Okay. Yeah, another one would be about definitely skill set or skills people we've got on board, and whom do we need to do this, to involve in this project, this initiative, whether we should think about hiring specialists, upskilling, or maybe even, or maybe give freedom to people in terms like, okay, now you've got some time, this problem statement, find the solution, test, experiment with available tools, if that's the the area of the problem.
Very good. I'd add, I think, consideration of side effects as well. So, for example, if we add a AI-driven chatbot to communicate with our customers, that might make us more efficient. It might reduce our costs, but it also might annoy our customers, right? So we have to think about these aspects. It's not just about what makes us work better as a company, but what impact that has in terms of our business.
Okay, guys, so far we have so first you need to understand what problem are you solving. Second, tolerance for error. I wrote myself like it's always about risk management. Actually, it's like we always need to assume that there are risks and how do we mitigate them. Do you have a skill set, and do you prefer hiring or upskilling? Side effects, consideration of some side effects. What comes to your mind next?
Probably something about commitment, like, do we really believe it, and are we committed to this, or do we have someone who can lead this initiative? A leader who will be taking care of this, because changes hurts, right? It's not an easy process, so you need someone who will be there all the time. It won't happen in the background, just in a miracle way. So you have to constantly think about it.
Yeah.
If someone will take care about this, and do we have such person?
And it's like connecting some parts. Is like we can just ask who will drive this adoption. If you have a guy and you trust him, probably you are maybe ready. But if you don't have such a guy, it's like a bigger problem to consider.
Yeah, I think one more thing as well is barrier to entry as well, because this is a double-edged sword. When we talk about product, we actually probably want areas where barrier to entry is very high, where we're somehow uniquely able to provide this service or this product. Because otherwise, if we're building just on AI and the AI is doing all the hard work and we're acquiring that from somewhere else, then it's very easy for someone to replicate. So I mean, you might be able to make a business model that way, but you need to think about carefully. On the other side, if the barrier to entry is very low, and we're talking about things that you can do internally to make your business more effective or efficient, then we probably should be doing those things, because our competitors can also do them very easily, right? So long as there's enough value in doing them, we might get left behind if we don't. So I think having a clear view on that barrier is actually something you need to be able to do. And it's not really a question of whether your business is ready for AI. It's something that you should, I think, have to think about now, because that's the world we live in now.
Okay, guys. So from this aspects, what do you think that organizations usually overlook?
Look, okay. From my perspective, I'm not sure whether it's about overlooking something, but it's about going too quickly to the solution. Like, yeah, we've heard that AI now can do everything. Let's build an AI agent that will work on the US market and will provide insights and have a win rate of, like, I don't know, 80%, because it sounds great, right? And we are not doing, or people are not doing, this loop of, is it really possible? How this can work? Do we really, like, this second step, second loop of thinking? There, they just want to jump in straight into the solution right now. Let's do this without the bigger picture and thinking about it.
Yeah, that's I think a really good one. I think a very important point that we've been discussing in general. Like that thought, that product focus. Overlook is another one. I mean, I mentioned one already, which is the price point that we're at. Which again, it would be silly not to use that opportunity, but it's going to change one way or another in the future. The other one that springs to mind, and it impacts price as well, is actually the impact outside of technology and business right now of this revolution, right? So it's a kind of not a secret at all, but the sort of discussion that people in the business world don't have, which is there is a massive environmental cost of this current generation of AI. And at some point, those environmental pressures will hit all of our economies, not just from AI, of course, it's an ongoing problem, but and at some point, governments will eventually be forced to legislate around that. And at that point, this could become a very different conversation. So what we're overlooking, I think, on both those points is the long-term view of what's happening here, and it's very hard to know what that is, but thinking that the situation will stay the same and that we'll always have access to cheaply available large language models is probably a little naive. And so that is the thing, I think, more than anything, that's really missing from the thinking.
Okay, I maybe will repeat the first point with defining the problem we are solving, but maybe we've talked about measuring and maybe having a success metrics that will determine whether introducing AI is a good choice. Like, it's like we do not have any metrics that will just tell us that it's like a very tricky area to determine what is good or wrong. I'm also thinking about, like, let's jump into some of more tech or infrastructure sides. Like, are you ready with your data for AI or with your infrastructure to support to handle systems that to handle AI related systems?
Yeah, again, it's a hard one, and that's this this AI magic wand, right? That right now we can use Gen AI, large language models for anything, and it works well to some extent, right? For simple use cases, or for my use case, it worked, right? But when you think about scaling it, when you're thinking about, okay, yes, we need this one, but with 95 accuracy because our business is, I don't know, finance, healthcare, or anything like that, you don't want to build a system on 50% accuracy, for example, right? Because it's like almost guessing. So you would like to have something very robust, 95, 99%. And then you enter this dark area of those aspects where it's, of course, like, okay, it's not that easy to build a system. Your prompt may work in the past, but right now, no. You've got different data, different environment settings, anything like that. And no, sorry, this time, no luck, right?
Yeah, and I think testing as well is a subject where I think we're going to need to see a lot more discussion about that, about how you actually rigorously say, I'm meeting that target every time. There are, of course, mathematically, there are ways of assessing these things, but it's a moving target, and the maturity of the tooling around it is not great right now. So I think that's a huge deal. Whether your data is ready, we talked about that already. I think lots of organizations talk a big game or want to do well with data, but they tend to underinvest in that subject. Already difficult to find staff to do those tasks, and only getting harder in this world as well. Oddly enough, one of the things that's happening in the marketplace right now is we're getting all these data analysis tools that are AI driven, trying to help us with those things. I have, to be honest, no idea if they're effective in then building out for further use cases on top of them. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be analyzed as well.
Yeah, that's also something we observe very often. We've got the discussions about AI solution, but at the end, we have to start with data engineering part, because someone would like to build a system, and the data is here and there, and some part of it is in here, CRM system, and there, and the data is scattered, and very often, with some mistakes, empty, anything like that. So you first have to do this work of gathering the data, processing it, before you can even enter this phase of building the solution. So also, companies overlook this. Go on.
Yeah, so also I think we have this other sort of difficult topic, especially in Europe, which is, when we start talking about data, it's also where that data goes to and how it's processed. So having your own models locally, things like this, but if that's usually fine. But if we start talking about shifting a lot of data out to American servers and things like that, we get into trouble really quickly. And actually, from experience, when we start talking to companies about signing up for services, I come from the finance and banking space, and there are legislations like DORA in that space. So it's an overloaded term. DORA has another meaning for a lot of people, but in the banking space, it's a recent piece of legislation that we have to use in every contractual relationship that we have. And actually, some of the vendors, especially the American vendors, the moment you have that conversation with them, they just walk away. Right, so there's a lot of questions here about data security, GDPR, all of these things, and compliance in general that are unfortunate and difficult to deal with, but cannot be ignored as well.
So quite a lot of aspects, actually. To our viewers, if you have any questions or any ideas, you can always write. And I think that I will ask the last question to you. There are many aspects you've mentioned. You mentioned data, upskilling, impact on business, what is your commitment plan, risk management, and so on and so on. Quite a lot of aspects. So for summarization, what is your one pro tip for a for people that are determining their AI readiness, what do they should focus on the most? What is the most important factor in your opinion?
Okay, I can take this one first. Well, in terms of factor, the thing I would do, I would log the business leaders or business people with tech leaders in a room and not let them out until they agree on 2 or 3 specific measurable business problems they want to solve with this. And I believe that this should be the starting point or something that will hopefully raise the success probability of the initiative. So that's really, from me.
I think that's a really wonderful way of putting it. Again, I would sort of, and it's maybe the same thing, but I would check your assumptions, right? We talked about that many times, but really check whether you understand what it is that you're talking about doing, rather than just believing that you're going to get some magical outcome just by grabbing this technology and using it. Because that, I mean, much as that's what's been sold to many people, that isn't the reality. And you know, there are wonderful things you can do, but only if you do exactly what Michael's talking about. If you sit down and think about it seriously, and have those product-minded discussions about it, rather than just assuming the world is going to deliver you this wonderful benefit.
Yeah, I really love the answers. It's like just to focus on what are you actually solving, and closing people inside the room and just workshop the ideas and what actually we are solving and measure how do we measure it and so on. It's like you really need to focus on it, because we can also use AI, we can experiment a lot, but still, what kind of problem are we solving and how do we know it that we solve that? Thank you, guys. Thank you for today's conversation. Really special thanks to you, Jeff and Michał, for joining us today. I appreciate your time, and I hope this discussion really gave people many ideas, thoughts about aspects, questions that they should consider before jumping into AI world. Stay connected with us for some more discussions during our webinars. This one is the last one from the series from about AI. For sure, we prepare refined checklist to our viewers. We will just share it in a short time. And thank you very much. Thank you, guys, one more time. And
thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.